Start the timer.
Timer is started.
Welcome back to our 777 series.
The 777 series.
We each have our own opinion on what's better. I actually like the 777 series. That's good. It's just a little shtick we're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
7 location-independent experiences are 7 most memorable location-independent experiences because we've been doing it for 7 years. That's why I picked 7. And there is a new show coming out all of these last 7 days, April 23rd through April 29th. That's how we got to 7. And today we are on our memorable experience number 3. So we've crested it. We've kind of crested now, right? We've reached it.
Yeah.
And we are going down towards
Into number 1.
It's not time for a drum roll yet, I don't think.
I mean, why not? It's a fun podcast. These are quick.
I mean,
why not throw in a drum roll, I think.
Throw in a drum roll, please, Chris, if you listen to the podcast. And we talked about it on the last show, this idea of taking a lengthy trip, kind of something that can only happen usually for people if they're location independent, if they're retired, if they're taking a gap year.
If they're teachers and maybe they travel all summer.
Right. And even a teacher, you've got 2.5 months. So one of the beauties of the location independent lifestyle is the fact that you just can take longer treks. And by taking longer treks,
anytime you want.
Yeah, that means you can squeeze in more places, and you can either do it in a fast travel way, like our last trip, our Euro trip that we talked about, or you can do it in a little bit of relatively little bit, slower travel way. And that is what we did on this trip, and this was 2 summers ago. So this was summer of 2017. And so you're looking at me like that's not right, but I'm 90% sure it is.
2016.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to go with what you say.
It was 100%.
All right. It was
2016 because in 2017 Whitaker was born.
Okay,
so,
fine.
Yeah. Do you know when your son was born? Do you know what year it is now? It's 2019.
Summer 2016. We knew we wanted to take a trip, and we knew we wanted to go for a lengthier bit of time, and it was about 2 months, but we did something a little unique here. So there's a few memorable parts to this. The first was, let's start with the first place we went. This was Norway. So we knew that we wanted to go visit Jason, co-founder of the Paradise Pack with me and Location Indie, Zero Travel Podcast. You guys probably know who Jason is. He lives in Norway. We had never been. He had a daughter, and we're like, let's go visit her in Norway. Let's go visit them in Norway.
Right.
And we decided to do this, but before we went, we were out to dinner with my parents.
Yeah, and we said to them, hey, we're leaving for Norway in a few weeks. I mean, because we booked this pretty last minute. It was in July, and so we said, we're going to go. And they're like, oh, yeah. And I said, but we don't know what we're going to do after Norway, but we know that we want to be gone for a little bit of time. And would you guys like to meet up somewhere? Because, we have this time. And they're like, well, we really want to go to Norway. We're like, okay, well, we're leaving in like 7 days.
Yeah, we're like, okay, I guess we should have told you earlier, but we just assumed that they wouldn't be able to come or wouldn't come. And my dad's like, oh, no, I'd really, really love to see Norway. And my mom was like, I want to see Jason's baby Ellie. And we're like, okay, you can come. I'm sure it's fine with them if you come. And this was maybe more memorable. Well, it was memorable for us, but maybe more memorable for them because we were just sitting at dinner, never expecting that. And so, long story short, we looked for flights. We found really good flights for them, and they
booked with Miles,
and they joined us on that 14. It was about 14 days, 2 weeks in Norway, and we all flew over together. And then we stayed for 14 days in Norway, and we did some cool things. We were in Oslo for a bit. Where else did we go? Bergen.
We went to Bergen. We did a whole road trip out there, and we saw some of the fjords, and Trav had his epic E-flop there.
That is super memorable. If you don't know, I did an E-pop pose and fell right on my butt.
It was so funny. I forgot about that.
Very funny.
And then we actually went up to Engedal, which is where Jason's wife grew up and is from. And it's very rural in the mountains of Norway. We were there.
A hut with a grass roof, a sod roof, which I've always wanted to do and never thought that I would get to.
Check that right off of your wish list.
Check that box off, yep.
And we were there for a little bit of time, and then we came back to Oslo. And when we were in Oslo, and we, were this is the end of our trip, and Trav's parents have flown back or about to fly back to the U.S. And we're thinking, okay, well, where are we going to go next?
Yeah,
what are we going to do?
Exactly. We didn't know what we wanted to do. They were getting ready to leave. And so we decided to do something that we hadn't done before. And that was to just pick the 2 places that we wanted to go most. And it didn't matter if they were near each other, if it was going to work out, like if it was easy flights. We didn't just say, oh, we're going to go here and then go here and go here because it's, there's an easy route to do this. We just said, where do we each want to go the most? And let's figure out how to make it work. And so we each got to pick a place.
And I mean, obviously, it was going to be somewhere in Europe, so that it was.
I mean, kind of.
I guess we could have gone to Thailand or Peru, but at the time, it was kind of. There are a lot of places that we wanted to visit in that area, and so. Trav, of course, had been talking about Georgia for a very long time. I mean, not a very long time, but obsessed for a couple of weeks or months, which made it feel like a long time.
Because I talked about it probably every waking minute of those
Georgia,
months.
I've never even seen pictures of Georgia. I guess it would be cool. But he was like, well, this is where I want to go. So that's where we're going to go. And I was like, okay, this is the game. You get to choose. And, as soon as he said, I want to go to Georgia, I remember specifically sitting in Jason and Anna Dorta's apartment in Oslo and just like looking up pictures of Georgia. And I was like, wow, this looks really beautiful. Yeah, let's go here. Let's go. Even though it's a little bit hard and we have to like fly overnight through Riga and then arrive at like 4:00 in the morning. And it was, not going to be super easy to get there.
There was a few day period, maybe it was only a day period where you actually were like, I don't know if I want to do that. Yeah. I might just go somewhere easier, like on your own. And I thought, I'm like, well, I'm going to Georgia. So that was a little bit memorable because we didn't compromise. True. I just turned you to my side.
You did.
But through awesome pictures and showing you hachipuri, which is cheesy bread, and also some amazing pictures of Kazbegi and stuff like that.
And you also decided, which was, to me, in my mind, memorable. You were like, okay, if we're going to land at 4:00 in the morning, I'm going to book us an Airbnb and I will book it for the day before so that when we land, we can immediately go and have a place to rest. And that was kind of like a baller move, even though the Airbnb, I think, was pretty cheap. It was like $50 a night.
Yeah,
but
40,
still,
45
that was something that was really thoughtful that was like, okay, if we're going to be able to land and immediately go somewhere and be comfortable, that helps me because I don't like to land and then like, oh, we can't check in for a million hours and I'm so tired. And so that was cool. That was
I forgot about
nice
that. So
move,
obviously pretty memorable on Heather's part because I didn't even really remember that. But we had a fantastic. I mean, this trip was memorable for me because Georgia was absolutely incredible.
Georgia is amazing, and Trav was obsessed with it for a reason.
Yeah, if you're new to the podcast, you haven't listened to any of our episodes before, or not many, definitely check out some of the ones on the country of Georgia. It's my favorite country in the world. So we had that experience, and it was the most off the beaten path we had been in a while. It was the most kind of getting back. I say getting back to our travel roots, but it was like independent travel, off the beaten path. We didn't exactly know what to expect. Everything was new. And we hadn't had an experience like that for a while, since maybe we had been to Myanmar. And then, it reminded me of our first trip to Thailand because everything was so new. So it was like this fresh, new,
it was
like really authentic experience. And then from there, we got to go to your country that you chose, which ended up turning out to be pretty awesome as well.
So anyway, we decide that I was going to choose the place that I wanted to go. And I don't know did we decide before Georgia or while we were in Georgia? I don't remember.
I am not sure either. I think it might have been right before Georgia you had decided, because I'm like, we're going to go to Georgia. Yeah, it was before, because you said, I said, I want to go to Georgia. Mm-hmm. You said, I want to go to Greece. And so we kind of looked up the logistics and thought, all right, well, we're going to go, from Norway, it makes sense to go as further away to Georgia first, come back to Greece, and then go where we finished the trip to London and Scotland, and then back to the U.S. So we kind of made like a loop there.
Well, at that time, we weren't planning to go to Scotland, just to throw that in there. But so we decided to go to Greece, and I'm not sure when we booked the ticket from. Maybe we had already booked it when we went to Georgia, but I wanted to go to Greece really badly. I wanted to go to the islands. It doesn't really matter which island, but I definitely wanted to get to Santorini because, again, the epic landscape there was just beautiful, and I've just always wanted to go. So we decided to leave Georgia, and I guess it was a night flight or an early morning flight again.
Another
It's
reason
like,
why
it's
this was
hard to get in and out of Georgia.
It is because it's not a main hub, right? So it's like a spur. So everyone else gets into the other places at normal times and then goes to Georgia, or you leave Georgia really early in the morning to get somewhere normal by the morning. And so we left at I think 3 a.m. out of
something
Tbilisi,
crazy.
and the night before. Only a couple hours before, Heather and I had decided that was a good idea to eat ribs. I don't know why, but we were like at this old
know.
Soviet amusement park in the middle of the night. And we thought,
We're hungry.
We're hungry,
It
let's
wasn't
get
the
some-
middle of the night. It was like 9:30 p.m.
we didn't leave there until midnight, and we had to get on a 3 a.m. Bus, or a 3 a.m. taxi. But we ate ribs, and they had an adverse effect on both of us because I got really, really sick first, and then Heather got sick as well. So on the flight, I mean, this was
We
memorable.
just didn't feel well.
I mean,
And
I
Trav, the next day, we landed in Athens, and we had booked a hotel, which fortunately let us check in at 8 a.m. because Trav was just sick, and he spent the entire day in Athens just being sick.
so we had one day in Athens, and I was in the room in the
So
bathroom
that
most of the
sucks,
time.
But
So either way, I got sick, and that was super memorable. But the idea behind this was we both picked a cool place. And again, this only happened because we were location independent. We could go to Georgia. So we were in Norway 2 weeks. Then we were in Georgia for 2 weeks. Then we were in Greece for 2 weeks. And then we decided to go to London.
right, and because our friend was getting married, actually, and that was the whole reason why we were going to end up in London and spend this amount of time over in Europe, because we thought we'll travel before the wedding, and then we'll go to the wedding in London, and then we'll decide what we want to do then.
Right. So that I forgot.
Yeah.
That's how it kind of,
Yeah, that's how
the
we,
bookends was
right.
Norway and London.
Right.
We had a month in between.
And then, we were in London. We went to the wedding, which was so amazing and really fun. Our friend Drew, from when we were teaching in Japan, we met him there, and him and his wife are wonderful. So we went to that wedding, and then we were like, well, should we just go home, or should we spend some more time in the UK? And we'd never been to Scotland, and that's a beautiful place to visit. So
And we
thought,
didn't have to go home. Like we didn't have any plane tickets. We were going to book them last minute. And so we added on
a solid week, maybe
Week
and
to
a
10
half.
days?
Yeah, 10 days. And we decided to just go up to Scotland. And, our friends, of course, had been there because they're from the UK, and they gave us all these great recommendations. And we had just this really relaxing, wonderful time after, we were in Norway, which was great. Then we were in Georgia, and that was pretty fast packed with lots of adventure, and it was all new. And then we were in Greece, which was another new spot. But then the UK kind of feels like old hat to us because we've been there so many times. And Scotland is just this place where you feel like you have to relax because it's beautiful, it's old, but it's also countryside. So there's not, unless you're in the cities, you're
Which we
not.
were a little bit.
In Glasgow and Edinburgh a little bit. But when we drove out to the Isle of Skye, I mean, it's nature, and it's beautiful and unlike anything you've seen before until we went to Ireland. And it's a little similar to that. But there's nothing like it in the U.S. that I've ever seen. And it was just so calming and relaxing to be there. And that's kind of how we ended the trip. And at that point in our life, I felt like we really needed this kind of trip. And it was just incredible.
Yeah, I would say the two of the most beautiful places we've ever been, or at least in my opinion, were on that trip. And that was Omalo in Georgia and then the Isle of Skye in Scotland. And
not to mention all the beauty in Greece, but
Sure.
to say all the beauty in Greece, and then these other two things were even more amazing.
I guess, yeah, Greece was almost expected.
Yeah.
The beach is going to be great. And they were. Whereas these other two were a little bit off the beaten path and under the radar, maybe. And this trip as a whole, to me, almost solidified our location independent life because, again, if you listen to our lessons and we put a timeline in that podcast, our 7 lessons learned, but we kept building towards being able to take more time off and enjoy travel for travel's sake. And this was a 2-month trip. Not to say we didn't work at all, but we worked much, much less than some of the other trips we've talked about. And so this then again was it was cool for a few reasons. One was the places we went. 2 was, okay, we're going to go away for 2 months and we're going to do very minimal amounts of work. And we got to see that the business worked, and we set up some systems that allowed us to go away. And then
and
3,
I don't remember being stressed out on
No.
this trip really at all. I mean,
we knew we were going to Georgia and we weren't going to work at all because
Well,
there's
yeah,
not much
I mean-
internet. Greece, kind of just hanging on the beach, and then you mentioned London and Scotland, just being with friends, and then going off to the countryside. So we knew we weren't working much, and we were able to set it up in a way that actually worked. Timers going off. Last thought was the fact that then with this, we did the fun thing of, hey, we don't know where we're going, but you pick a place, I pick a
Yeah.
place. And each of us, not that didn't want to go to Georgia, I didn't want to go to Greece, but maybe it'd be further down my list. And so we got to experience something we might not have experienced because the other person was pretty keen on it.
Yeah, and just we do that a lot where we ask each other where we want to go before we plan a trip or before we plan out our year. But to be doing it when you're gonna leave for that trip in a few days, it was really spontaneous and just kind of a different feel to those trips because we did it in that way.
Yeah, so that is our number 3 most memorable experience in the 7
Two
years we've
more
been
after
location.
this, and that one was pretty freaking epic.
2 more.
So the next 2 are going to be pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome, including tomorrow's episode. And this is our very first location independent trip ever. And I make a huge, huge mistake, probably the one mistake that someone who wants to be location independent can't make, and I make that mistake. So check it out. It'll be coming out tomorrow. That'll be our number 2 most memorable experience.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for listening.
Bye.
See ya.